you for ISSER, thank you for the university, and thank you for all partners and parties who are going to be part of this program. We invite you to be at the helm of affairs and guide us through it, being with every speaker and with all of us. And when the time is due, please take us back to our various places of engagement. In the name of Jesus, we have prayed with thanksgiving. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. We'll now welcome Professor Peter Quartey, the Director of ISSER, to bring us his welcome remarks.
Please, can you move this so that can you move my microphones, your microphones? Move it a bit up there so that I can. Please put it on so that we can make all the space that we. If this can go a bit further.
I think now that should come. You want to put the file in the middle.
Oh, okay. The presenters will need a space, so let this stay here. Okay. Distinguished members of the High Table, provosts, deans, directors, heads of department, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the usual tradition, all protocols duly observed. It is a very good morning to you all. With great joy and honor, I welcome you to the launch of the Retail Finance Distribution, that's ReFinD Research Initiative, the new multi-year, multi-million-dollar project funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and led by ISSER. I wish to express our profound gratitude to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for the confidence reposed in ISSER and for this significant partnership which affords the Institute to enhance its excellent research performance at the national, continental, and global level. As one of the flagship research units at the University of Ghana, ISSER values this partnership for their vital role in keeping us on the strong upward trajectory in research output and quality. I would like to thank our special guests and you all, including those online, who have joined us to launch this project, which promises to be an exciting one. I hope that the discussions and networking that we'll have today will be useful in helping us build and deepening our long-lasting relationship to advance the goals of the initiative and our shared common interests. Focus on digital financial inclusion and improving access to finance, especially in low-income and middle-income countries. The ReFinD Research Initiative will see qualified research teams, including researchers based here at ISSER and those in other locations in Ghana, Africa, and elsewhere around the globe, implement competitively selected projects on the topic. Recommendations and associated output will be aimed at promoting access to finance among marginalized groups like women and people experiencing poverty. This focus of research initiative, along with its potential to enhance the knowledge and skills of researchers, are compelling elements that strongly support ISSER's vision. In the uncertain world we find ourselves, the volatility but also globally connected world that we now live in, ReFinD capacity to mobilize researchers and give them support to investigate an important topical issue like digital finance while strengthening their knowledge and skills is truly empowering. With this research initiative, ladies and gentlemen, I believe researchers will be enabled to play more significant roles in assisting policymakers make informed decisions. In addition, the commitment of the initiative to contribute to overcoming the perennial challenge of limited representation of researchers from the global south in development studies will likely yield benefits for many years to come. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before I take my seat, I would like to extend my gratitude and congratulations to the project staff of ReFinD, faculty and staff of ISSER for their dedication and support, particularly the team of researchers who work closely with me to bring the ReFinD research initiative to life. I would also thank the management team of the project. I particularly mention Francis Anand, David Amayal, Seth Gaz, and Rachel Isatella Haswell, who have tirelessly worked with me together this far. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of everyone at ISSER, I confidently say that we are fully committed to realizing this important undertaking. I am hopeful of what we can achieve together when we combine our expertise, networks, and commitment. I therefore extend an invitation to everyone to join us in this 5-year journey. I urge you to stay connected with us as we embark on this important project. I welcome you all to this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Quartey. I'd like to invite Dr. Ejapoma Jekedakun to introduce the chairperson.
Yes. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the chairman for this occasion. Our chairman for today is the Secretary General of the African Research Universities Alliance, a network of 16 of Africa's flagship universities. He is a professor of economics and also the former vice-chancellor of University of Ghana from 2010 to 2016. He was also previously director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research from 2003 to 2010 at University of Ghana and the first director of the Africa Growth Initiative of Brookings Institution, Washington, D.C. He has held academic appointments at the School of Oriental and African Studies, Yale University, and Swarthmore College in the U.S. at various points in time. He was a member of the Governing Council of the United Nations University from 2016 to 2019 and was also previously chairman of the advisory board of UNU-WIDER. He's currently board chairman for the African Economic Research Consortium. Until 2021, he was board chairman of Stanbic Bank Ghana Limited. He holds honorary degrees from University of Sussex and Land University. One of his strategic priorities as vice-chancellor at the University of Ghana was to develop the university into a research-intensive institution that supports structural transformation in Africa. Please join me in welcoming Professor Ernest Ni Aite Aite.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ejapoma Jekedakun. It gives me great pleasure, Director of ISSER, to be invited to join you for this launch. I'm particularly pleased to be here for the simple fact that this launch helps me personally to remember with considerable fondness many of the good things ISSER has been associated with over several decades. I'm pleased that today, through support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ISSER is once again doing work reflecting financial inclusion. ISSER has always been at the forefront when it comes to studies of financial inclusion in Ghana and indeed in West Africa. Many years ago, we were very keen in studying informal finance, and we're very much at the forefront in promoting the study of informal finance in Africa, with support from the African Economic Research Consortium. This was in the 1980s. Throughout the 90s, we saw the transformation of the study of financial inclusion move from informal finance to studies of microfinance. That has gone on, and today we've seen the massive changes that have taken place in South Asia, Southeast Asia also, and indeed throughout most of Africa. As a result of the pioneering work done at places like ISSER and other places, we provided the analytical framework that was at the bottom of studying financial inclusion. In those days, people seldom used the term financial inclusion. Today, it reflects what many of us were interested in the 1980s. We've seen the advent of digitalization and how it's affected developments in the financial sector, especially when it comes to access for the lower income households and businesses. M-Pesa in Kenya is a very good illustration of how, with technology, changes can be made to accessing finance for low income households and businesses. I am very pleased that with support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ISSER is in a position to contribute in a very, very significant way to understanding how poor households can better use new digital means to access finance. With this project, not only will we see improvements in financial inclusion, we will understand it better, and we'll be able to understand better also the links between the financial sector and other sectors of the economy. Digitalization provides us with the means to track what those low-income households and businesses do with the funds that they receive and how this enhances their productivity. I'm very happy to be associated with this, and I do wish ISSER the very best as it undertakes this project. I'm quite sure with this project we will see a major transformation in how ISSER engages with the rest of the university and how ISSER engages with the financial sector in Ghana, and also in making us understand better how low-income households, how low-income businesses are able to take advantage of the new means possible. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Prof. Aite. We would be taking the overview of a ReFinD research initiative from Professor Peter Quartey. So let's welcome him back as he gives us an overview of a research initiative.
Can we see the slides? Please, that's not the... Apologies to you all. The governor was scheduled to come. I met him on Saturday at a funeral with his deputy. Unfortunately, he has to go to an emergency economic management team meeting. He nominated one of the directors to come. There has been some miscommunication, so as soon as he comes, we will introduce him and then he will give his remarks. But we can't keep you waiting, so we'll continue with the program. Thank you very much. So that's the Retail Distribution Research Initiative. We call it ReFinD. And this acronym was coined by Seth. We thank you for this. We're struggling to find an acronym, and he graciously gave us two, which we settled on one. Next slide, please. And that's what we are launching today. Before I give the presentation, I just want to introduce the team for this initiative. We have a management committee, but one of the things that makes such initiative work is having a governance structure. In every business or every institution, you need to have a strong governance structure, and that is what we have thought through and provided. So we have the management committee comprising myself, Francis, Anand, who is a professor in the US. We have Dr. David Amayao, and then set from the Gates Foundation, we have Simon Bowachilenu, and then Rachel, who unfortunately couldn't be with us. We have Rosalyn Otu, who is the project director. She would hopefully start in October. And then we have a policy committee, that is a body that will advise us on policy issues, policy direction of the project. It's a high-level group or committee. We have Professor Nesaite, who is the chair of the group. And then we have Mr. Emmanuel Asante, the vice president for MTN, for, I think, Eastern and Western Africa. Then we have Kwame Ejepon. He's the head of Fintech at Bank of Ghana. And then Carl Ashi from Ghana Commercial Bank. Then we have the scientific committee. The scientific committee would review the proposals and make recommendations for approval. And Francis chairs that committee. I'm a member. David, Simon, Seth, Vera is here. Dr. Vera Fiado is here, if you can wave to us. And then we have Dan, Milo. These are all our foreign counterparts who will be joining us. I believe they are online. So Dan, we have Milo, we have Tanika, from India. Yeah. So that's the scientific committee. Then we have the staff members, Seth, Teresa, Derek, Daniel, Vicentia, Ebenezer, and Archibald, and others from ISSER who directly or indirectly support the project. By way of introduction, the Retail Finance Research Initiative, as I mentioned in my welcome remarks, is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which focuses on deepening financial inclusion and improving women's access to financial services. And our focus is on low and middle income countries. So it's not just a Ghana-focused study, but any institution based on low or middle income country. The project duration is November 2021 to November 2026. We all know that there is a strong evidence that demonstrates the role of agent networks in driving financial inclusion and by getting the unbanked population on board. So data from low and middle income countries shows that research in this area is very sparse, very, very limited. And the study will contribute to deepening financial inclusion using evidence-led findings. So we're not just going to do desk study. We want evidence-led findings that aims to promote access to finance among marginalized groups such as women and people experiencing extreme poverty. The two major key objectives of the initiative is to expand reach of agent networks through public policy and commercial solutions. So public policy, using public policy to influence, as well as commercial solutions. So if you have any Fintech or any organization that has commercial solutions, like mobile phones, softwares, and many others that will help us reach the unbanked, you are welcome to partner with us. The idea is that these solutions can help us plausibly scale up. Then the second objective is how to advance public knowledge about the structural constraints that limit agent networks. Lately, issues about security, the Momo agents and their security is an issue. We've recently heard about taxing the mobile e-commerce, e-business and so on, e-transfers and so on. These are all ways by which we aim to affect financial inclusion. So our methodology is very simple but very rigorous. We will drive cutting-edge research through sub-awards. So selected research activities are expected to come from local and international research institutions in low middle-income countries. We will deal with institutions, not individuals. Individuals will work through institutions so that we can identify such units or bodies. I recall a grant that was made to an individual in an institution, and the person took the money but failed to deliver. If it's through an institution, then you have somebody to fall on to make sure you either recoup the money or get the person to deliver. So we'll do that. We'll look at institutions with experience in large award management. We'll also look at those with little or no experience with large awards and may be poorly equipped to effectively manage the funds. I think recently the ISSER, the all-in project, is a typical one where they would assess your financial infrastructure to see if you are capable of managing the funds. If not, then they will disburse from the center. So this basically is one of the approach we are going to also adapt. The sub-awards is categories that we'll conduct. Initially, we'll do some mapping of available funds. We want to look at impact evaluation. We also want to look at pilot studies. We'll also look at descriptive or observational quasi-experimental research and intervention funding. The details we'll spell it out shortly. So for the sub-award categories, we're going to have funds for proposal development. If you want to develop a proposal, you give us a concept note. We'll give you funds for proposal development, of which our cap will be $5,000. That will be funding for researchers' time spent developing proposals for pilot projects, natural experiments, extensions, and greenfield evaluations. Then we have pilot projects. The funding available will range from $40,000 to $60,000. That will take within 3 to 12 months pilot studies to develop and test partners, interventions, methodologies that we think can be scaled up into full-scale projects. Then we have the natural experiments. The range is $40,000 to $60,000. We will be funding lead researchers or graduate students' time and or data acquisition to conduct quasi-experimental research, such as utilizing variations from a regulation change that enables observations of difference between individuals or regions exposed to change and those that are not. Then the last but not the least is extensions, where the grant will range from $100,000 to $125,000. That will be components of ongoing experiments, such as end-line data collection or follow-on activities associated with a completed experiment. Then the last one is the grand one, the greenfield evaluations, where the range is $250,000 to $450,000 for rigorous impact evaluations, working with treatment and control groups with larger interventions for a period of up to 3 to 4 years. Let me say that I don't have this money on me, so nobody should follow me. I recall some armed robbers attacked a colleague because he was discussing funding, and the house boy heard the man mentioning some dollars and leaked the information that this man has that money in the house. I don't have it with me. So basically, the research versus intervention funding are as follows. As I described: proposal, development, pilot, natural experiments, extension, and greenfield evaluations. We estimate that for proposal development, we'll give about 9 grants. Then for pilot, 11 grants. For natural experiment, 5. Extensions, 5. Then the greenfield, 5. So a total of $2.955 million will be committed towards research. That's a chunk, a very huge proportion of the funding going into research. Our key outcome indicators, of course, we expected to also deliver certain key deliverables or outcomes. A framework paper which is going to be published. We have a copy online. I'll share the site with you shortly. So the framework paper is supposed to guide you, read and understand the focus of the research. Francis will come and give a presentation on that as soon as I'm done, so that you know exactly what some of the key issues are. And at least we are supposed to produce 12 quality working papers, which is on the path towards being published in high impact factor journals, at least 6 short reports from the results of the pilot studies, 12 policy briefs on research notes prepared that we share with relevant ecosystem players, then a final synthesis paper. So all the research that will be done across the globe would have to meet and have a final synthesis paper. These are the key issues. We're also looking at 2 international conferences, one at the initial stage and then one towards the end of this phase. Our project milestones are what we have seen. What I've basically said is what you find in the some of the activities that will be undertaken from now till the end of the 5th year. So what are the next steps? One, a presentation of the framework paper, which I said Francis will be presenting shortly. At the moment, we have some pilot studies already. We have 3 of them that we have funded, that is ongoing. We are going to circulate the RFP, the request for proposals. They'll also be online. So if you visit our website now, you'll find them there. ReFinD at ISSER. ReFinD at isser.ug.edu.gh. I think the deliverables, we have to work towards achieving the deliverables. Then the last thing is scaling up and sustainability. Scaling up some of the things we start initially into bigger projects, and also looking for funding for sustainability. One of the things that excites me about this project is that we have hired a project director and of course a grants manager, and they are tasked, or they've been tasked to also look for additional funding. So it's not a situation where at the end of this phase the project ends. We want to ensure that there is some sustainability in this initiative. So, in all, I think these are the key things I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Quote. Before we take the presentation from Professor Francis Anand, we'd like to invite Dr. Seth Guards to give us a statement. It's a rep from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Professor Korte, you've got me nervous, so I have to clarify that I don't have the money on me either. Full disclosure. But seriously, no, I want to start by thanking Chairman Aiti, Professor Korte, Francis, Professor Anand, who's going to speak, and all of you for joining today. It's a pleasure to be here. My first time actually in Accra, in Ghana. And I come from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation from a team called the Financial Services for the Poor. And our focus at the foundation is really to drive more inclusive financial systems, systems that serve low-income communities, in particular low-income communities in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Our kind of, we call it the North Stars, are that by 2030, 80% of adults around the world have access and use formal financial services. So Professor Aiti he mentioned prior research on informal finance. And our goal is really to see formalization, so folks that come from more challenging backgrounds, from vulnerable communities, have access to all the tools that many of us have to enable us to smooth our consumption when we face hard times and to grow our businesses and pursue opportunities. In particular, our second North Star is that 60% of households that make less than $2 a day also enjoy access to formal finance by 2030, and in particular, that there is no gender gap between access for men and for women. And so in that context, that's our kind of vision at the foundation. I think it's worth emphasizing the role of what this initiative is focused on agent banking. We know there's a cluster of evidence, some of which we've had the good fortune of supporting, from places like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, but even places like Mozambique, Bangladesh, that make it very clear that digital finance can be incredibly impactful on people's lives. And it sounds a little bit funny that something like finance can actually be meaningful from a development perspective. It's not the real economy, it's the financial economy. But there's actually very specific reasons, specific mechanisms that we know that digital finance impacts people's lives. So in times of crisis, emergency situations, whether it's a natural, it's a bad weather, whether someone loses a job or has an unexpected health emergency, we know, in particular in low-income communities, people ask friends and family for help. With mobile money in particular, we know that people can ask more friends from a wider network from further distances for help much more quickly. And the ability to access those funds enables them to overcome those short kind of shocks to their households in ways that prevents them from falling into the poverty trap, from selling off assets, from foregoing meals. So in this context, we know that digital finance matters, but that's not entirely the focus of this initiative. This initiative is focused on one of the constraints that prevents finance from reaching some of the more remote and distant communities in particular. We know that from the Fintech data, a big global database, that among folks who are unbanked, who still don't have access to financial services, the distance to an agent or a formal financial institution is a major impediment. Okay? The data that I was looking at for Ghana in particular suggests that something like 20% of folks that don't have bank accounts say they don't have bank accounts or mobile money accounts because of the distance to those agents. That's a major constraint, right? And on one hand, it feels like maybe there's a market failure there. Maybe that these people aren't being served the way they should be served. But on the other hand, there might be very rational reasons for why banks, fintechs, mobile money providers don't reach and can't reach that last mile. It might be because it's not profitable. It might be because it's not sustainable. And that's why we're so excited about this particular initiative. And in particular, this initiative is being hosted at ISSER within Ghana. Because the digital financial services system within Ghana, the ecosystem, is really, in many respects, an exemplar, both for the rest of the continent and also for the rest of the world. As early as 2015, there were regulations that were focused on e-currency that were focused on making sure that there were proper regulations for agents. By 2018, there was an interoperable payment system that was developed so that banks, and money can be sent from bank to bank, but also from bank to mobile money wallet and vice versa. Quite a sophisticated combination of regulations and also infrastructure in what is really, I think, an exemplar kind of digital financial services ecosystem. And so we think it's really appropriate that this, first of all, this really exciting initiative be hosted in an economy like Ghana's, but also in particular at ISSER, as one of the leading institutions focused on development, economic development in the continent and frankly globally. And it's our hope that this work continues to elevate the incredible work that ISSER is doing, and hopefully in collaboration with all of you. Having motivated a little bit the research, I just want to close by saying that I want to really celebrate the ambition and creativity of this initiative. We're particularly excited that the ISSER team has taken on the kind of vision of this being not just a Africa-focused initiative or even a Ghana-focused initiative, but a global initiative. And you'll see that in some of the projects that we'll hear about later are already being supported in places like Indonesia, places like Bangladesh, in addition to places like Ghana itself. So making this a global platform and making ISSER a center of excellence on this topic, I think reflects the ambition of the project's supporters and founders. And I hope you all continue to be good partners in supporting their work and driving this project forward to success. So with that, just one final thanks to everybody and for having me here. It's quite an exciting time to be here. And I look forward to all of the knowledge to be generated and gained going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gad. So would invite Professor Francis Anand to present the framework paper for the research initiative.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm actually super excited to double as the scientific lead and the co-chair on this important research initiative, what we call a ReFinD research initiative. Since I've got maybe 10 to 15 minutes, I think I want to just sketch out exactly what we have. Most of the details are fleshed out in the framework paper that will be available online. So let's do this. Do I have access? Okay, let's do that. So I'd like to see my talk as a continuity on some of the issues that Prof. Kote already talked about. But next slide, please. Okay, so at the core of what we are thinking about is really a basic framework that is really consistent with standard classical poverty models. So, and this is based on two fundamental objectives. So one is this observation that there's limited evidence about what works, in particular for the poor. At the same time, there's limited use of actually evidence that potentially is likely to work for the poor. Now, if you put these two pieces together, what you get is inefficient programs, inefficient policies, and inefficient regulations. What that translates into what? Money is wasted, what? Poverty endures for a long time. So that begs the question, really, we need to rethink about, one, how to rely on academically relevant, policy relevant, also even commercially relevant programs that allows us to design and evaluate programs that are really relevant in thinking about poverty. At the same time, we need to mobilize, partner, and support decision-making, policymakers in thinking more carefully about how to use the evidence that is produced in this academically or policy-relevant context. If you put these two pieces together, what do you get? You get a better programs, efficient programs, better policies, and so forth. So if you do backward induction, what you're going to get is more evidence means less policy, less poverty, right? Okay, so next slide, please. Now, what we're going to do in fitting into this whole policy framework is we're going to argue that digital finance retail distribution networks matter, okay? And as you might be aware, there's really growing interest in thinking of how markets for digital financial services are scaling quite rapidly, in particular thinking of mobile money and agent banking. Okay. Now, there's a lot of evidence from Kenya, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, and even some parts in Asia, showing the remarkable, poverty benefits that digital finance provides. Here, thinking of, agent banking and mobile money as a whole. At the same time, most of these markets are also growing quite rapidly in many different contexts, particularly in low and middle-income countries. And not only that, but there's huge regulation and a lot of digitization initiatives that are actually transforming the functioning of these markets as a whole. And however, it also turns out at the same time that at the core of the functioning of these digital financial markets is this what we call the building blocks for this market, basically the retail aspects of digital finance. And we're going to argue that at least retail aspects of digital finance come in play at least from two different perspectives. One is the ability to convert physical cash, right, from physical cash to digital currency and vice versa. At the same time, digital finance retailing actually provides you the platform to onboard a lot of remarkable digital financial services and tools, including even informational resources that we all get from retailing as well. Now, what is more interesting, just to make things more interesting, is the fact that there's growing early evidence really showing that actually there's a huge positive correlation, and this is something Seth talked about a little bit. The fact that there's a strong correlation between the density or the reach of agency and the use of digital financial services as a whole. And you bear with me, this really has remarkable implications as we think of financial inclusion and also poverty as a whole. This is basically to highlight, one of my favorite pictures, actually. This is something I got in one of my works about mobile money. As I'm showing here, is basically kind of a stylized picture that is highlighting, an enterprise called Mobile Club. It turns out Mobile Club is really interesting for a couple of reasons. One, this is a premise where you could not only onboard mobile money, but you could do mobile money, you could stake a national lottery, you could actually do savings and stuff. It tells you how important and remarkable some of these retailing markets are playing in terms of poverty reduction and economic activity as a whole. Please, next slide. Okay, despite all these really important, highlights, motivational facts, rigorous work and evidence is super limited in this space. Okay, at least from three different angles. One is really about the functioning and the organization of these retail markets as far as digital finance is concerned. The second is really about the behavior and the potential vendor incentives that some of these retail vendors face. And more importantly, about the think more of commercial, public policy interventions that allows us to think more carefully about how to expand the reach or the density of these retail networks. Clearly, this really tells us that there are really huge, potentially large, important open questions that remains here, which is where we come in. Now, if you put all this narrative together, we have one fundamental policy problem or question. Digital finance retail distribution, services really matter for financial inclusion and poverty, but how? So what we're going to do is we're going to try to break this into two parts. We're going to think of this, one from the intensive margin, perspective, one from the extensive margin. Well, by extensive margin, we're going to try to understand how do we expand the reach of agency in these markets. And on intensive margin, what we're going to think of really, how do we grow or develop existing retail, outlets? And clearly, the latter actually opens up really remarkable, interesting questions as far as, market features are concerned. Issues about trust, competition, market structure, incentives, behavior, and many have you. Okay, please, next slide. Okay, so what are we going to do? ReFinD. So let me just, push a little bit more on the extensive and intensive margin features, and then I can conclude. I don't want this to be a lecture. I just really want to really highlight what some of the key issues that we are interested in is. So on the intensive margin, you would wonder what interventions, be it public, commercial, or even, private, would work to expand viable digital finance retail outlets, right? And, in particular in rural areas where most of these markets are very sparse. And the question is even how far can we go, or how rural can we go, which is really interesting from the perspective of thinking of how to actually intervene in the market with agency. How do one introduce new retail agents into what I call virgin markets? Markets that have historically have access to zero agency, if you want to think of it. In particular, from thinking of really what should be the composition, right, of the gender composition of agency. What kind of training do you want to provide? What kind of, do you want to rely on existing micro businesses to deliver, new markets or not, and what have you? Obviously, these extensive, large, gigantic, questions naturally, lends themselves to what I call plausibly, hypothesized interventions. So what would a classical intervention look like? what is the impact of relaxing registration requirements, for example, for agents, in areas where there are low transaction volumes to begin with? What's the impacts of encouraging, entry and competition in this market, all the way down to testing other behavioral or maybe, rational marketing interventions that allows us to think carefully about how to scale this market, in particular in rural areas. So you could think of branding agents, pay for quality interventions or pay for performance interventions and what have you. So next slide, please. Okay, now on the intensive margin, we are more interested in thinking about really what interventions, again, public or commercial, will allow us potentially grow existing businesses, okay, in this market. And in particular in rural areas, what are the most efficient and effective ways to address issues about quality? What set of interventions are most likely to make women more comfortable using, mobile money services or agent banking as a whole? What is the impact of what we call non-exclusivity? The fact that you could have multiple agents serving more than one provider as a whole in that space. Again, this naturally leads to potential interventions like subsidizing the profits or reducing the volatility of the profits or revenues of agents in this market, all the way down to improving access to liquidity. By the way, one of the biggest problem that most of these markets are confronted with is the idea of illiquidity. The fact that you go to a mobile money vendor or an agency, I want to conduct a transaction, he tells you, I have no money in my account. This is the version of going to a bank and you want to cash out money, and the bank tells you we are out of cash. Right? So liquidity really clearly is a huge important problem as far as this is concerned. So issues about liquidity are some of the questions that we are more interested in thinking about. Of course, in local, very low, low income environments, issues about power and reliable electricity is often quite a big challenge. So thinking more carefully about what kind of interventions we can have that can relax this as a disincentive to grow businesses is one of the important things we are thinking about as well. Relatedly, we have some classical empirical, industrial organization questions, thinking more carefully about the organization of the markets for digital financial services. So if you look here, you see that one of the questions that we have is, what are the drivers of competition and how does it matter as we think of, the profitability of these retail outlets? And what are the potential moral hazard or adverse selection implications, right, of maintaining market transparency in this market? The fact that this is a market that is characterized by uninformed consumers, shorted attributes, and many others are really important questions that we are toying ourselves with here. Now, and then how might the vertical structure, right, of digital financial services actually, lead to less competition for quality, right, in the market? Again, really important questions, all the way down to the externalities that these markets offer. Now, there are some classical management science type questions that we are interested in. In particular, we are interested in what interventions will work to promote good quality behavior in the market. Clearly, there's a lot of misconduct, what folks might call illegal markups, that typically, consumers are confronted with. So what kind of management incentives can we have to get to really better behavior in the market? Is it an issue of monitoring? Is it an issue of transparency? Or it's really an issue of just punishment mechanisms? Or even making agents really residual claimants, right, of the business output as a whole. Now, one fundamental question that I think perhaps many of you will be thinking about, and this is really at the core of some of the questions that we've been talking about, is really the question of how does digital financial services really unlock the potential of businesses, right? There's a lot of celebration about DFS, and to what extent is this really transforming small businesses as a whole? Again, these are really high-level important questions that and if so, how? Okay, maybe I should conclude, because I promised that this was not going to be a lecture, but I would like to highlight some high-level stuff. Please, next slide. Okay, so the hope here with ReFinD is to basically advance research about the supply side of digital finance to begin with. What we're going to do is to hopefully, crowd in and provide rigorous research or evidence in terms of really how to think carefully about influencing policy and also practice as far as digital finance retailing is concerned. The hope is that we're going to be able to reflect on at least two fundamental questions that allows us to go back to the big policy question that digital finance retailing matters and how, right, for poverty and that of financial inclusion. One is, how do we expand the retail digital financial services, viable retail digital financial services on the extensive market? On the intensive margin, how do we grow the existing businesses? Which obviously opens up for issues like competition, market structure, incentive, and many have you. Clearly, I need not mention this, but certainly this calls for rigorous variation in the market experimentally and even quasi-experimentally as we think of really how to generate evidence that is actionable and can also push the needle when it comes to commercial interventions that we can have. Now, how do we do this? We need partnerships, right? Researchers will have to partner with important stakeholders in the digital finance market space and think about what kind of questions that can be answered within this space. Again, I'm going to stop here, but I think most of these details for these sketchy presentations are all available in the framework paper that we have online. Okay, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to see a video, a 5-minute video from Ghana, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, after which we would have a statement from a rep of the bank, of the governor's rep from the Bank of Ghana. So if you're ready, let's see the video.
And women entrepreneurs in Ghana. Over the years, this pilot study is on digital financial services, e-commerce, and women entrepreneurs in Ghana. Over the years, there have been several discussions on how women can be empowered in the society. And for women entrepreneurs in particular, financial inclusion has been identified as one main way in which they can be empowered. When women entrepreneurs get exposed to the financial sector, they're able to obtain loans, they're able to build a strong savings culture, improve upon their risk-sharing capabilities, and also improve upon their income earnings potential. This ensures that they invest in the basic things of life, which benefits not just them, but the entire society. And indeed, several studies have found that countries that have encouraged financial inclusion amongst women have also experienced tremendous growth, poverty reduction, and income equality. In Ghana, nearly half of all businesses are owned by women, and a sectoral breakdown shows that a large proportion of these businesses that are owned by women also operate in highly impacted sectors of the economy. And yet, we find that women entrepreneurs face more financial exclusion than their men counterparts. Studies have cited reasons such as the high cost of accessing formal financial services, the high illiteracy rate amongst women, the complex nature of the traditional financial sector, and the one-size-fits-all approach that is being deployed by the providers of the financial services as the main reasons for the exclusion of women from the financial sector. Digital financial services have the potential to bring a lot of the women into the financial sector. This is because they are flexible, they are relatively cheaper to use, and they are also relatively more efficient than the cash-based transactions. And because of that, they allow women to engage in multiple activities. And yet here again, we find that the adoption rates for women as far as digital financial services is concerned is actually lower than that of men. Studies have cited reasons such as the perceived high cost of using digital financial services, the lack of trust for the providers of digital financial services, the fear of losing money, and the low literacy and awareness of digital financial services by women as some of the reasons why women do not really use digital financial services. This calls for investing in the education and training of women entrepreneurs in order to benefit from digital financial services. And therefore, our study actually seeks to examine whether the provision of digital financial service intervention can improve business outcomes, and female livelihood empowerment. Our pilot study uses an RCT approach and focuses on 2 main districts in Ghana. And in all, we use a sample of 80 women entrepreneurs. 40 women entrepreneurs from 1 district will serve as our control group, and the remaining 40 from the other districts will serve as our treatment group. Under the treatment group, we hope to select a subsample to provide them with business development support in addition to the training they would have received. And this is just to enable us identify whether training alone is sufficient to roving women on the DFS platform, or a complementary service like business development support is actually required to have an impact. By the end of our study, we expect that the women that we train will acquire the skills needed to operate digital financial services. We also expect that the women we train would experience an improvement in their business outcome, and these women would eventually be empowered in the society. The team members for this project are Simon Bawachilino, who is the team lead, Michael Kodom, Peter Korte, Ijapoma Jekelako, Andrew Ajay Holmes, and Cynthia Akwe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hi everyone. This project is about women's participation in mobile money markets in Bangladesh. I'm Jessica Goldberg, and the project is joint work with Javier Ginet, Carlota Nani, Anu Sivaram, and Laura Vanderwall. Let's see. There we go. Mobile money has a range of positive effects on households. It leads to improved ability to cope with risk and negative shocks, to higher levels of savings, consumption, and income, and even to reductions in aggregate poverty. There's also evidence that mobile money may be especially beneficial for women. For example, in Kenya, these positive effects of mobile money are larger for female-headed households than for households headed by men, and access to mobile money induces some women to enter business. In Niger, mobile money has been shown to increase women's control over transfers. But despite the benefits of mobile money and those specific benefits to women, women are less likely than men to use mobile money. Overall, in low-income countries, 21% of men and 15% of women have accounts. And in Bangladesh, that gap is even larger. 32% of men have mobile money accounts compared to only 10% of women. Women are also less likely than men to participate in labor markets in general, and specifically to participate in the market for mobile money as providers or mobile money agents. In Bangladesh, 26% of women participate in mobile money, and 26% of women participate in the labor force. And many of those women are working in the garment sector. For example, in Dhaka, around 78% of women who work for pay are employed in the garment sector. Women are not only scarce in the labor market in general, they are also particularly rare among mobile money agents. Of 180,000 mobile money agents in Bangladesh, fewer than 1,000 are women. Agents typically operate small shops, stationery stores or grocery businesses with mobile money as an add-on service. These jobs are local and they have greater potential than many factory jobs for flexible hours. So they could be attractive to women, but women are unlikely to work in those jobs. Women's participation as mobile money agents could then increase women's labor force opportunities, but also could increase opportunities for other women to be mobile money users. Having more female agents could make mobile money more accessible to female customers and could lead to broader changes in attitudes about women's labor force participation. So this study looks at an intervention to increase the supply of mobile money providers, and specifically the supply of women working in the mobile money sector. What we do is we partner with bKash, the largest mobile money provider in Bangladesh, to identify markets and agents. Specifically, we map all mobile money providers in selected urban and rural markets, and then we screen those providers for interest and ability in expanding their mobile money business through hiring. We select one focal business per market to be included in our study. And from that business, we ask the owner to identify 4 people who he would be willing to have as an employee in his shop. The owner has to come up with 2 men who would be potential employees and 2 women. And those people have to be available for work and able to come and join the business if they are offered the job. So a mobile money shop, as we said, is typically a small business that has some retail operation in addition to its mobile money business. This is an example of a sort of a typical mobile money shop in an urban area. And you can see that it's a busy place. This is a shop where there's 2 people working in the business to serve the customers. It's a small space, and so an employee has to work in close proximity to the shop owner typically, and has to be able to handle a range of retail functions as well as mobile money transactions. The intervention includes 2 types of randomization. The first is at the agent level. There, we randomize whether the shop is offered a subsidy and whether that subsidy is for hiring a man or for hiring a woman. So specifically, we have 3 treatment arms. In the control arm, there is no subsidy. In the male employee arm, the shop is given a subsidy for hiring one of the 2 men who was on that initial list of 4 agents. In the female employee arm, the subsidy is given to the shop for hiring one of the 2 women. The value of the subsidy is the same, whether the shop is asked to hire a male or a female employee. And the subsidy lasts for 6 months, but declines over time in order to shift the responsibility for paying the wages from the project to the shop. And that 6-month interval allows the business owner to learn about the employee's abilities and about the profitability of having an employee. It also allows the employee to build skills. At the employee level, the randomization is really of the job offer. So within a kind of an owner network, there are 4 candidates connected to each agent, and either 0 or 1 of those candidates will be offered a job. So what we're then able to do is to compare outcomes for the individual who receives the job offer to the peers who are part of the same social network but are not offered a job. And we can do that within gender by comparing the woman who is given a job to the woman who is not given a job, and the man given a job to the man not given a job. We're interested in outcomes for really 4 groups. We're interested in outcomes for business owners. Specifically, we want to know what is the effect of having an employee and of having a female employee compared to a male employee on business profits from commissions on mobile money transactions and also from other business activities. And we also want to study the effect of having a female employee on attitudes towards women's labor force participation, on assessment of women's skills and abilities, and on willingness to hire women. At the employee level, we want to know the effect of having a job on income, labor force participation, skill accumulation, and household bargaining. Then we're also interested in how bringing in employees, and specifically women, affects access to mobile money. So we will use administrative data and customer intercept surveys to study the attitudes of customers towards women's labor force participation and customers' use of mobile money. the number and volume of transactions, and their comfort performing those transactions. Finally, we're interested in how the experiences of men and women working in the mobile money sector affect the attitudes of those around them. So particularly affect the attitudes of neighboring households of employees and neighboring businesses of shops that receive employees through this study. We will use a range of survey data, observations by trained enumerators, and administrative data from Bcash in order to measure these outcomes. The project is at an early stage. We have completed a listing of mobile money providers, and we've conducted baseline surveys with the potential employees. We will begin the intervention soon, and we look forward to having results to share with you shortly. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Gianmarco Leon Chiliota, and I am an associate professor of economics at Universidad Pompeu Fabra and the Barcelona School of Economics. And in this short video, I would like to introduce you to the project that we are piloting at the moment, which was generously funded by ISSER and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The project is entitled Competition in the Branches Banking Agent Market, Effects, Strategic Responses, and the Role of Trust and Fairness. And this is joint work with Erika de Serrano, Martin Kans, Daniel Gottlieb, and Firman Witoeler. Digital financial services are increasing their relevance across the developing world, and it is expected that number one, new operators enter the market, and number two, existing operators expand their agent networks. The increasing competition in the branches banking agent market have deep implications for financial inclusions, which we are going to explore in this project. On the one hand, the commissions charged by agents do not represent a significant part of their revenues, compared to, for example, those that they get from their main business. Hence, at low levels of adoption, the entry of new competitors in the market can undermine the effort levels exerted by incumbents, leading to lower financial inclusion. On the other hand, higher levels of competition have the potential for fostering innovation in marketing techniques, lowering informal fees charged by agents, improve service quality, and ultimately increase financial product take-up. Our proposed project will explore three research questions. Number one, how does increasing competition in the agent banking network affect the number of clients, volume, and frequency of transactions? Number two, can agents adopt different marketing strategies to bolster or counteract the effects of competition on their productivity and financial inclusion? And finally, what is the return for the bank in investing in new marketing techniques for agents? This last point is extremely relevant because part of the research agenda that we are carrying out in the digital financial markets has to be in partnership with private banks, and therefore we need to make sure to incorporate this last question in our agenda. Actually, we have partnered with one of the largest banks in Indonesia to conduct this project, and we have been working together with them for the past 5 or 6 years. I am showing you here the map of Indonesia with a current coverage of the bank's agent network. In green, you can see that currently the bank has 25,000 agents throughout the country. Typically, you have one agent per village. But however, there is plenty of scope for further expansion of the agent banking network. In orange, you'll see the villages where the bank has identified potential agents that could be hired, right? These are about 8,000 villages, and there are another 50,000 villages where there are no agents. This means that there is plenty of scope for expansion, and actually the bank with whom we are partnering has set the goal of hiring about 60,000 new agents in the upcoming years. And this is going to be part of our experimental intervention. As I mentioned before, the partnership with the bank has started quite a while ago, and they have facilitated us a bunch of data which provide the basic findings that motivate these projects. So three key findings from our exploratory study are as follows. First, agents are quite heterogeneous, meaning that they have different needs to overcome the constraints that they find to become more profitable. Number two, there are three key dimensions that constrain the potential growth for agents. First, knowledge of how the products work. Second, the availability of marketing strategies. And third, the trust that clients or potential clients have on them. And we have identified these three dimensions as three potentials for client acquisition and product engagement. Finally, we have found that there is a significant correlation between internal and external competition, meaning whether one agent faces more competition from other agents from the same bank and from other banks, and the degree of competition is strongly correlated with good agent performance, right? Which is in line with a couple of hypotheses that I mentioned before. Okay, so now to finish this video, let me tell you a little bit about the research design that we have engaged with, that we have proposed to the bank and the bank has accepted. First, we will study how the level of competition affects performance. For this, we will take a sample of villages and split it in two. In some villages, we will increase the number of agents from our partner bank, therefore increasing the level of competition. In other villages, the number of agents will remain the same, which we will label as a low competition villages. The comparison between these two groups will allow us to identify the causal effect of higher level of competition on agent performance and client and financial inclusion. A second level of randomization would be done at the village level again. And here, within each group that we identified before, we will provide information to agents about the upcoming increase of competition. Okay, so agents within the high competition villages, a subsample of agents will be informed that in the near future more agents will be hired to work in these villages. This will allow agents to take actions to either foster or counteract the effects of this new competition, and this will allow us to study the idiosyncratic preferences for different marketing strategies that agents have. The final level of randomization would be to randomly provide agents with different tools that allow them to compete in this new environment. The three innovations that we are thinking about providing are the following. First, discount codes, which will allow them to compete on prices. Second, endorsements, which will allow them to compete in trust. And third, leaflets. The number of options available to agents will be randomized, therefore allowing us to identify the precise effect that these marketing strategies have to counteract or bolster the effects or competition in the branchless banking market. And this is going to be true both in the baseline villages, which will not face a change in competition, as well as in the ones that have higher levels of competition. As I mentioned, this project is right now being piloted, and we hope to be able to share the results, some preliminary results of the project with you in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So those were pilot projects that are ongoing in Ghana, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. We'll now be taking the statement from Mr. Philip Otu, is the Director of Research at the Bank of Ghana. He is standing in for the governor. He's online, and so we'll ask that you switch us online so we take his statement. Thanks.
Are we ready? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Otu, please take it away. We are ready.
You're ready.
All right.
Okay, so let me, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Peter Quote, Director of ISSER, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me first apologize on behalf of the governor for not being able to make it to this important launch. He has personally asked me to express his full commitment to the program. I think for all of those gathered here today, the question is the role of the Bank of Ghana in sustaining an initiative like this that is being launched. Obviously, one will ask, what is in there for the Bank of Ghana, and what can the Bank of Ghana do to help? We think from the Bank of Ghana's point of view, from the institutional point of view, and from where we sit, our main goal is to sustain macroeconomic stability for such an intervention to work in Ghana. Because without the stability, this cannot work. And we need a stable environment to make this work. And I think on the macro side, over the past few years, a lot has gone on to sustain macroeconomic stability, except for the past 1 year, 6 months to 1 year, the events that have been folding on the world stage and our macroeconomic conditions, we seem to have had some setbacks as far as macroeconomic stability is concerned. I think it all started with the COVID. The central bank came in with a lot of COVID interventions, all in an attempt to try to get the economy working in the midst of the COVID. We took cognizance of digitalization, and we worked with the mobile operators and gave a lot of waivers to ensure that digitalization was the main tool that helped sustain the economy. As people stayed indoors because of digitalization, we were able to carry on with businesses as usual. And you'll be surprised to note that on the West African sub-region, it was only Ghana's economy that stood tall and recorded a positive growth. All other economies in 2021, 2020 recorded negative growth rates. But since COVID, we then moved into a new era, and you will all agree that in 2021, economic activity boomed. Economic activity was restored, let me put it that way. And in the end, we recorded a very healthy growth rate of around 5.3, 5.4% for the year. Now, just when we were expecting economic activity to continue to surge in 2022, then comes in the RU war and all the challenges associated with the Russian-Ukraine war. It has brought about inflation. Crude oil prices have gone up. The macro indicators have all started wobbling. And this has presented a new challenge to stability. And the Bank of Ghana is currently working hard to ensure that macroeconomic stability is restored to allow businesses to flourish. Now, beyond the issues of macro stability, the Bank of Ghana also has the tool of moral suasion to help direct financing for institutions that we regulate to ensure that such interventions work at the lower tier level. Today's launch is seen as another further step to deepen financial inclusion in Ghana, and also to ensure that the poor comes in that net to ensure that we all have a safe and sound economy that everybody can participate in. Now, I must say that as far as the central bank is concerned, we are already involved in all of this. A report by the Financial Inclusion, by the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, also revealed that better and relevant financial inclusion initiatives can help reduce gender inequality. Women who have access to bank accounts, savings mechanism, and other financial services may be able to control their earnings and undertake personal and productive enterprise. Also, studies show that improved access to financial services for women could also prove to be the key to unlock the potential for women-owned and women-managed micro and small enterprises to grow. Financial inclusion also for women also helps in reducing the exposure of poor and rural households to income shocks, thus improving growth and promoting more sustainable and equitable development. Ladies and gentlemen, across the globe, 1 billion women still remain financially excluded, while a gender gap of 9% stubbornly persists in developing countries. According to the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, there has been an exponential growth in the proportional increase in access to financial services. For example, in 2018, a research on 18 countries by the Financial Alliance for Women suggested that at the global level, men represent 65% of total customers. They handle 80% of loan volumes and 75% of deposits. Hence, women representation is significantly lower than men in all financial aspects. Data sets from the World Bank Global Fintech 2017 and Financial Alliance for Women Report 2018 also suggest a need for further research and analysis on the outcomes of different policies, regulatory guidelines, digital financial services initiative to promote financial inclusion, and how these impact and continue to affect women's financial inclusion and to help reduce the gender gap. Research has also shown that DFS can be an effective medium to accelerate financial inclusion and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, Findex data shows that the potential DFS in addressing global gender in financial inclusion, Findex 2027 reveals that digital payments and use cases seem to have a strong correlation to the reduction of gender gap. Mr. Chairman, the list could go on and on and on. But the Bank of Ghana is a member of the Alliance for Inclusion to ensure that we deepen the financial inclusion agenda in the country. The agenda seeks to ensure commitment to gender equality through financial inclusion. On our side of the Bank of Ghana, we have rolled out sustainable banking principles in response to the bank's in response to that, banks are expected to comply with 7 principles, and these are being guided by 5 sector guidance notes. Ladies and gentlemen, we think that it's all about financial inclusions and the channels that can be used to reach the poor in society. On behalf of the Bank of Ghana, I think our main message for this meeting is that we are deeply, deeply committed. We believe in the power of research. and therefore we support this program in its entirety. And our doors are always open for further dialogue. We hope that as we move along, we'll continue to fine-tune our operations to better see how we can incorporate future research results into the modus operandi of our work. Thank you very much. We see today's launch as another further step to deepen financial inclusion. We are in full support. We welcome every initiative that will be brought on board in the future, and we wish you the best of luck in all endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Otu. We will now launch the ReFinD Research Initiative. To do that, I'd like to invite the chairperson, Professor Ernesta Yite. The rep of the Bank of Ghana is online, the director of ISSER, and the key project team members to come and then launch the research initiative.
On behalf of the team assembled here, and on behalf of the management of ISSER, and behalf of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who are the major sponsors of this project, we are very pleased jointly to declare the ReFinD project duly launched. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ite and the team. I think we gradually coming to a close. There is a request for proposal. Actually, if you can share the website, we'll be grateful. So when you hit the website, you will find a column specifying requests for proposals. All the requirements are clearly specified in there. The core questions that Francis outlined, a template, proposal template is also there. You will find a framework paper also loaded for you to read and appreciate the focus of the research. You would also find a budget template and how to submit your proposal. Everything is clearly specified there. So please go to the website. As you see, first call for proposal, and the description is all out there. The various sub-awards, the templates are also there, the materials that you require, proposal development, pilot, natural experiments, the budget, the framework paper, and the email address to submit to. The subject line should read, ReFinD Proposal 2022. Then the project type, you put the name, whether it's a proposal development, whether it's a pilot, whether it's a natural experiment, extension, greenfield, please put it there. Then your researcher's name, your last name, your organization, and country. Deadline for submission will be 10th of August 2022. When we receive all of this, We will send them to reviewers who will review them, submit comments. The scientific committee would also look at them and recommend appropriately for funding. Thank you very much. So that's the website, refind-isser.ug.edu.gh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. We'll now take solidarity messages. So I'd like to invite Mr. Martin Kwame Awaga. He is a rep from Fintech, umbrella organization. So please, if you are here, kindly come up and give us a solidarity message. Yeah. Go.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. Good afternoon. I am delighted to be here for the launch of the Retail Finance Distribution Research Initiative. Ghana's fintech sector is experiencing significant growth, development, and innovations. One exciting area is how the fintech entities support financial inclusion, ensuring the government's cashless policy and enabling participation in the formal financial sector. One testament to the work of the fintech sector is the increasing number of persons who can access financial services through financial transaction accounts. The ability to access a transaction account, including bank accounts and mobile wallets, is the first step towards deepening financial inclusion, since these accounts enable people to store cash and remit money digitally. The Bank of Ghana in 2021 reported that there were 40.9 million registered mobile money accounts and 17.5 million active accounts. This is a strong evidence of the overarching goal of stakeholders, especially members of our association, within the financial sector to serve underserved communities and customers at the last mile. The financial technologies and digital payments industry is one of the fastest growing and thriving sectors, contributing significantly, about 250 million plus from 2019 to date, to the country's developmental agenda. The industry has witnessed tremendous growth, particularly during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Based on a recent survey by Max Scuvelier from Africa, The Big Deal, Ghana was ranked as the 5th investor-friendly ecosystem on the continent, after Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt. Mr. Chairman, I would like to commend the government of Ghana's efforts to create an enabling environment that will fuel financial inclusion in the country. Policies such as the Cashlite Roadmap, the Digital Financial Services Policy, and the National Financial Inclusion and Development Strategy have undoubtedly inspired confidence in the financial services sector. These policies have been geared towards achieving financial inclusion, lowering transactional costs, and increasing daily transactions on mobile platforms. According to the World Bank, annual remittances to Africa amounted to $49 billion in 2021, with Ghana being the second beneficiary of $4.5 billion aside Nigeria, which attracted $19.2 billion. While efforts are being made to expand agent networks across the country, digitally innovative solutions must be appreciated to make it easier for the diaspora to remit money back home, as this is one of the assured channels of finance for development. At this juncture, I would like to share with you the work our association is doing to strengthen Ghana's financial technology ecosystem, while at the same time deepening financial inclusion. Our mandate at the Ghana Fintech and Payments Association is to serve as a foremost fintech hub, premised on the philosophy of impartially promoting and accelerating the uptake and adoption of financial technologies, digital banking services, mobile money transmission entities and financial services across the length and breadth of Ghana through dialogue, advocacy, education, and research. Though we are a relatively young organization, our goal is to create an enabling environment that stimulates innovations in the fintech sector. And our organization's evidence can be seen in the yielding results in the industry. Mr. Chairman, the evolution of mobile money agent networks in the country has to a large extent breached the gap between underserved communities and digital financial service providers. Beyond the current practice of the agent networks offering peer-to-peer transactions between urban and rural communities, they are now offering value-added services such as serving as banking agents, selling insurance, pension services and schemes, bill payments, and supporting the delivery of e-government services. That is to say, the development of agent networks can be viewed from the perspectives of linking them as part of various building blocks of the digital financial services ecosystem. We are excited to be at this launch today because our association is a firm believer in evidence-based approach to policy and program delivery. Research insights can provide important signposts to guide stakeholders in selecting the best course of action to generate maximum results. From this perspective, our expectation is that this laudable research initiative will provide relevant input into our work or the work of policymakers, regulators, and stakeholders in the industry. I would like to extend a hand of partnership to the Retail Finance Distribution Research Initiative, since it is our firm belief that as an association, we can work with you in achieving your project goals and objectives. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I would like to congratulate the proponents of the Retail Finance Distribution Research Initiative. Your initiative is coming at an opportune time where the industry is experiencing several exciting developments and innovations. The expectation is that your initiative will support this growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Awaga. We'll now hear from Mr. Evans Otumfo. He's the General Secretary for Mobile Money Association of Ghana.
Mr. Chairman, please permit me to, at this point, stand on all existing protocols to congratulate the Institute for launching such a research. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for this opportunity to take part in this launch. As a key stakeholder in the government's digital financial inclusion policy, i.e. helping to bridge the gap between the bank and the unbanked and other key players, we are particularly interested in this initiative. In fact, a multi-million-dollar research which sought to unearth challenges and also to propose measures to address the numerous deficiencies within the financial ecosystem. In the drive to achieve financial inclusivity, the agents network, a key ecosystem player, performs numerous functions. Unfortunately, we have been bedeviled with several factors that keeps militating against our operations and, for that matter, our progress and our contribution towards a digitalized economy. Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that as an association, and for that matter, the Mobile Money Agents Association of Ghana, we are looking forward to a research which outcomes will offer policymakers the right information to propel the needed policies that will help to shape the industry and also to shaping and to solve the challenges that confront the industry and, for that matter, our businesses as mobile money agents. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that the Mobile Money Agents Association of Ghana, we are in full support of this initiative, and our doors are open as and when our needs and our services are needed, we are ever ready to support and make them available. Thank you for this audience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans Otumfo. We would now take the chairman's closing remarks. Help me welcome Professor Ernest Ayite to give us his closing remarks.
Professor Peter Quartey, Director of ISSER, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of a very exciting launch event at which I've learned so much. We heard earlier the Director of ISSER tell us about the scope of the project. He gave us an overview of exactly how what we expected from the project and how one could access resources from the project. The Governor of Bank of Ghana could not join us, but Dr. Philip Otu was able to do a presentation of exactly how the Bank of Ghana expected to relate to the project. What I liked about the presentation made by the governor's rep was the fact that the central bank, the key regulator, is very, very interested in financial inclusion, has taken note of all the developments associated with fintechs, and has prepared a regulatory regime that supports the development of fintechs in Ghana and their link to financial inclusion. That's extremely heartwarming. But I was also very impressed by the fact that he gave the commitment of the central bank supporting this project, this initiative. Over the years, there's always been some kind of tension between policymakers and researchers, and I'm happy that this is being taken care of through this new partnership to support the ReFinD project. We listened to the presentation on the framework paper by Professor Francis Anand, and that was a very informative presentation. It allowed us to understand the concepts behind the project. It allowed us to understand the research questions being posed and how these expected to be answered. He made us aware of the fact that there's very little evidence from existing material to support policy making. But even that little evidence was not being used adequately. And so this project has a solid and very logical base for which it is grounded. And that for me is quite, and he walked us through the various techniques that they expect to be utilized by researchers interested in this project. Clearly, everything has been very well thought through. And I do expect that as a result of this clear thinking, we will see something emerge out of the project. What is important is the fact that today's research questions being posed may not be new, but the data and the techniques available for analyzing and answering those questions have developed vastly in the last 20 years. So I, as an old man, expect new things to emerge. I expect new findings to emerge, new evidence to support policy making to emerge. Once that would allow us to be able to answer the questions that we've been asking for more than 20 years. We saw presentations of new work being done under this project from Ghana, from Indonesia, and from Bangladesh. Very informative. They showed us how these new techniques are being utilized to answer questions with respect to, especially, access to credit and its impact for both men and women, how the differences in the environment would affect these and lead to different outcomes. So we look forward to seeing those researches completed. We have just listened to solidarity messages from the Fintech umbrella organization and then the Mobile Bankers Association. That's, for me, a very, very encouraging sign. It's very encouraging to see that these bodies are interested in the research being done. In the past, they didn't show much interest. I don't mean these particular organizations, but civil society, if I may call them, that didn't show much interest. So there's clearly a new beginning where civil society entities are very interested in the research being done and will be done and have pledged their support to it. I do hope and pray that this support pledge will come to fruition. As I bring my remarks to an end, I'd like to thank the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for giving ISSER the opportunity to lead this project. I did ask the director of ISSER how much was involved, and so close to $5 million. If my memory serves me right, the largest research grant ever received by one entity in this university was about $8 million for the sciences. This becomes the largest grant going to a non-science entity at this university, and indeed in Ghana. I mention it not simply because of the size, but for the fact that it opens a new door. It shows us that we can be ambitious, we can dream bigger, and in doing so, open the doors for many young Ghanaians and young Africans who want to do research. I thank the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for making this possible. I also like to encourage them to believe that good research can be done in Africa. It is easily possible to support African research institutions and African researchers to do globally competitive research. And I hope that with this beginning, we will see more and more support, not only from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but from other research funding agencies around the world to see that today we are starting something that should be replicated all over the place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ernest Ayite. We would like to now take photographs. So I'd like to invite those on the high table to come down, and then the project team will join them. Permit me to also acknowledge our participants online. We are grateful that you were able to join, and if you can show some of their faces, we'll be happy. Yes, thank you very much for joining us. So, project officers, please join. The project team, please. If you can take off your masks and then, take a nice picture. Yeah. Project team members. Thank you very much. We'll have media interviews following shortly. And then I'd like to implore all of us to network a bit while we get ready to go for lunch. So thank you very much for attending this launch. And thank you very much for attending. We are really grateful that you could find the time, and we hope to invite you for subsequent programs as they come up. Thank you. Yeah, I'm at ISSER. My name is Ralph Amma. I was at Kansas State.
Thank you very much.
Second.
With Elizabeth?
Elizabeth is at KU, University of Kansas. So I was at Kansas State University. With, I don't know if you know Vincent Amano. He's an agribusiness guy.
I know one, Kansas State, right? Jesse Tapp.
Oh, Jesse Tapp. He taught me production.